What's up, brother and sisters? It's your brother G World 7_D. Now, there's so much evidence to prove that we were already here, but unfortunately, some of my people want to stay stagnated and ignorant and just continue to say they're slaves from Africa. That is a very tiring and ignorant statement. I continue to hear these Negroes here. I always say they go to these little damn schools, they continue to be brainwashed. This is an old book, Secret Cities of Old South America by Harold T. Wilkins. Alright, this is an old book, and I've been at this book from the 90s, man. We're going to go to page 41. Alright, to page 41 with this book. And I'm going to read a few things for you here. Get it clear. Some 50,000 more years ago, after the giant cordilleras of the Andes had been thrust up from the bed of the sea of older Miocene age, from the Andes are recent in the geologic sense. South America consists of a vast marsh, about 2 million square miles in area, which lay between the new Andean Cordillera and the Mato Grosso, or what is called the modern Brazilian highland. This land of high or royal Brazil, like the high plateau of Arizona, Nevada, and Utah, is one of the oldest which has emerged from the primeval sea. Its first savage, I repeat, its first savage inhabitants were black as coal, and their Negro kinsmen lived in the regions around the Orinoco and in the parts of Central America. Brazil then formed a great island separated from the Andes by a vast region of flooded lakes and great marshes. The Andes were born of tremendous volcanism, as well as also the southern part of ancient Brazilian island. Both vast regions were and are on an earthquake belt. Right, let's go down here. So I'm going to skip a little bit because I want to read the whole thing. But he talks about, I have spoken in my book, Mysteries of Ancient South America, of the giants who once reigned South America, as a far-off age of pre-Inca tribes. I'm going to skip further to go with the point what I want to emphasize about the so-called Negro. All right. Here's a part that I want to read, because I want to totally highlight everything about what I'm talking about. Well, I'm gonna skip on further in this book. I'll go to page 109. Excuse me, go to page 109. And 109. Yeah, here it is, right here. Okay, get a clear picture. Our last word shall be concerning these black. Our last word should be concerning these black troglodytes of Brazil and other parts of South America, as well as ancient Mexico and Darien. When Vasco Nunez de Balboa, leaving his ships and navy at Carita, went with some campaneros and Indian guides to see the Cacute Toriki at Curiquia, Darien, he found black slaves and was told that the Coricians warred with blacks around there. The blacks came from remote lands. There were traditions of these Aboriginal American blacks of very ancient date in American pueblos and tribes in Darien. They said that when their ancestors first came to that region, it was inhabited by blacks of small stature, who soon retired to the forest. Certain tribes, the Payas and the Tapalasses and the Kunis, said their race sprang from the union of a woman Indian and a black woman, with a man on the borders or banks of the Tatukura. Skulls with exaggerated pragmatism and of a low receding type found in the mountains of Sumapaz, seen connected with this ancient black race. These Negroid skulls have a strong suggestion of the ancient Cro-Magnon man in Europe. All right. But whether the red race of the American originated from these ancient American blacks, of which the Otamis of Mexico, the Caracals of Haiti, the Arvos of the Orinoco, the Portuguese and the Matayas of Brazil, the Kumas of Darien, the Manabis of Kutu, and the albinos of Darien are remains is very doubtful. All right. It says Carlos Curuvo Marquez hold that the North Red American red race sprang from the Aboriginal blacks of South America. All right, now I'm going to go even further over. Okay, I'm going to go further over to continue to talk about who the original people here in Americas. And we're going to start right about here. It seems a moot point whether the Central and South American Aboriginal blacks stand in the same relation to certain strange dwarfs in the country of Tupinambas, Indios, at or near the mouth of the Rio Negro, Brazil, as do ordinary Negroes to the pygmies of the Congo. Castelnau said they were like small children, and he saw some on the Rio Jura, who were the progeny of Indians and monkeys. It must or may have been these oddities who gave rise to the story of Del Bray about the men whose feet are all turned backwards. And I'm going further down. But the true, let me get it clear. I'm going to try to get as clear as I can. But the true black Aborigine of South America, who was also a troglodyte, and who may be of the same race as the mysterious cave dwellers of the cave city in the Argentine mountains, is the small, squat, ugly, and dangerous Negro found in holes and caves in the unexplored central Brazilian swamp country. It is a lost Mesozoic world, which Colonel P.H. Fawcett said lay about 100 miles from the dead. All right, I'm going down here further. Fawcett says, although their only weapons is a club, they are extremely dangerous. Ethnologists know little about these people. I shall attempt to learn something about them, though any intercourse with them will be difficult and dangerous. None are the morals of Brazil Negroid, but many of them are black, despite a constant mixture of blood. All right, I'm going to go even further over. Well, basically, I'm going to stop right there. All right. There's some more stuff that talks about in this book about who the original people were and are. This is an old book called Ancient Cities of Old South America by Harold T. Wilkins. Now, when I read this book originally, I'll say back in the 90s, late 90s, this is when I really start questioning what was really being taught to us about how, a lot of those black scholars just kept talking about Egypt. They was arguing about what was the race of Egypt. And you had clowns like Gates who was denying the Egyptians were black, which they were. This stuff is not up for debate, man. It's silly that white folks are trying to even argue about that and others. But I started to really want to know more about these black figures, so-called Negro figures, melanated Negroes, melanated individuals around the world outside of what you now call as Africa. And you have to basically get the bits and pieces of the information. This was a book that sort of hinted it. It has a lot of this racist nonsense up in there, talking about black people built the pre-Inca civilization, but led by white engineers. That's nonsense. You know what I'm saying? But it's still some good information. Now, this has been known. All right, this information has been known, and it's basically just right under your nose. But see, we have allowed outsiders to dictate and tell us our history, and then we allow these other clowns to sit there and talk about we come from slaves from Africa, which is a lie. All right, most of us already been here. And you know, as I mentioned, I talked about the Pueblos and all this stuff. I showed you images of the um, the Southwest with those cave dwellings and stuff like that, and how they parallel to what you see at the Malis over in West Africa. Basically, it was the same damn Negroes. There's very different types of black people here. This book also mentions about the Moors, black men with beards who came over here and who settled over here in America. So it also talks about that too. But there's so much valuable information out there about our history that there's no excuse not to know this stuff. It's gotten to be sickening when you hear goofballs continue to get mad and upset and keep talking about some 1619, continue to say they're the descendants of slaves from Africa. That information is inaccurate because it was so-called black people on every single continent globally, and they've sailed around the world. All right, this is a book that I had since the late 90s. All right. This is a it has some good information there, but it also has a lot of BS. But still, this is a good book. This is an old book, Secret Cities of Old South America, by Harold T. Wilkins. And I think brothers and sisters should get this book, and take it as you wish, but it gives you so much information because it talks about how the original people were, quote, Aboriginal blacks. There's a lot of white folks who know this because they've read this stuff. Some of them read this stuff. All right. And like I said, there's very different types of black people over here. It wasn't just one type. See, when you listen to this goofy, not very educated Negro, like I just said, they'll tell you that African slaves came over here. They don't tell you that there's, first of all, the original people over here were Negroes. But you have brothers and sisters selling from Europe over here. You have brothers and sisters selling from Asia over here. Some came from the east, came to the east. Some came to the west. Some from the west sailed out over to the Pacific. Some from the east sailed out over to Africa and to Europe. It was always a constant movement, always some type of flow, movement, exchange happening. They just weren't sitting stagnant and not doing anything. That's why I'm telling you, stop listening to people like Jabari. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. And I'm gonna say this now. He's not of our lineage. Now I'm gonna continue to bang on that, man. These clowns don't need to be speaking on our people's history. They sit there and know that most people have not done deep research like this. So they play games with you, and then many of you believe this mess. Like I said before when I was out on the track, all you have to do is look at the Negro people in so-called Africa. It's just that northern tip where you got mulattoes at, all right? Then you go over to Asia, and you still see the original people in India and over in the Andaman Islands and all through those Asian countries like Vietnam, Philippines. You still see Negroes over there. And then you go over to the Pacific Islands with the Melenated Aboriginals, and they're pure Negroes, but others have been mixed and diluted down. Then you go to Australia with the Aboriginal indigenous black people there. But then some of them are being mixed and diluted down, and these white people passed off as being the Aboriginal people. That's a lie. This is why, and then when you see all that, and you see those black people there, and if you study like the original Samoans were black, and you look at the original people of New Zealand and Tasmania were so-called black people, then it'll come, when you start studying even deeper, you realize obviously they had to be originally people in Americas were black. The information there, but you have to connect it. Just like you ride your bicycle and the chain constantly goes around because it's connected, you have to have that constant chain flow. That constant flow of information coming in has got to be chain connected together. And once you start getting all the information, man, it starts to come to you rapidly, thoroughly, more easily, fluidly. So I'm explaining this to you. Don't listen to these Negroes. Any Negro who's still telling you that majority of our people brought over in slave ship, that's a goddamn lie. Those black Europeans, I mentioned before, there was in-house fighting. Many of the stuff had to do with religious nonsense, and obviously you also had the Black Plague. But many of them came or expelled over here, but they were selling over here before then. But they were expelled over here, and a lot of them start to procreate and make what the Aboriginal blacks are already here. Most black Americans are not African. I repeat you. I repeat, most black Americans are not African. Most of us are descendant of the black Europeans and black Aboriginal Indians that were already here. I'm not saying there's no trace of no African mixture in there, because it was a small mixture that was absorbed by the Aboriginal blacks already here. But some of my people have, like I said, they got these degrees and they believe what these white folks have told them at these universities, or these Negroes who's educated by white people, or they're going out of their way to get a pat in their head or some position or some money and to be accepted by white folks. I don't have time for that, man. Study your true history and learn who you truly are, because the information's there.